Okay, so we'll be having Chuck joining just in a second. So sorry about that. This event is live, and
I think I'm on.
so can everybody hear Chuck or not? So that's cool. So that worked out, Chuck. That's excellent.
All right, good.
Oh, Patrick, Patrick, Tony, are you guys hearing Chuck?
Yes, we can hear him. We're
awesome.
glad he has been able to join.
So anyway, hey, good morning, everyone. I'm super happy today to be with Chuck Lewis from GSA. So yeah, Chuck is actually based in Texas, where he's working with GSA. So Chuck, you want to say a couple words, just say hi and introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning. Chuck Lewis, BusinessObjects administrator and basically jack of all trades for GSA. Been doing this for, well, I see Bob J now for about 16 years, and relatively new to 360Suite, but so far impressions are very, very good, and looking forward to this.
Thank you very much, Chuck. And Chuck, would you mind going to the next slide? So you've got control of the slides. So, and if it's an issue, I can actually take control of the slides.
All right.
Okay, awesome. We just saw your, the slide moving. So, Chuck, can you tell us, some people, don't know what GSA is, because we've got some audience in the US and we've got an international audience today as well. So what is GSA at a very high level doing today?
At a high level, what we basically do is we provide services for different agencies within the government, and we eliminate a lot of the pricing and research issues where we go in, we have approved vendors, we have approved cost lists, and you can basically buy everything from services to computers to cars to buildings. And then we also work with the Office of Finance for a lot of our HR and payroll. So that's GSA as a whole. And as far as our portion of that, we're responsible for a lot of the financial transactions, record keeping and reporting.
Okay. Thank you very much. And yeah, typically you've got a GSA pretty much in every country. So I see a lot of people in France today, and like GSA in France would be like the UGAP in French. So thanks a lot. So Chuck, if we can move on to the next slide. So what can you tell us about your Bob J within GSA? So, how is it?
Right now, we're sitting pretty good. We're currently using 4.3 SP1 patch 3. To be honest, we've been happier with this particular version as far as overall usage and performance. Pretty much since 3.x, 4.0 was really a rough upgrade. 4.1 was a little better. 4.2 starting to get good. 4.3 is probably the most stable platform that we've been on since 3.x. And the primary reason that we have migrated to this particular version was due to security reasons. We are constantly getting security scans, and there's a problem with this. And as we know, with the zero-day vulnerability that's out right now with the Logi 4, you're constantly being hit with these. So in order for us to upgrade our OS platform and to maintain our security findings status with our area, we've had to upgrade to 4.3.
Okay. And we'll talk later on about your 4.3 upgrade. And then, so Chuck, I see you've got actually a pretty wide or pretty large environment. You've got like 175K objects in production, which I would say it's not a mom and pop shop. So it's actually yeah, quite a large environment.
We have a very good environment, and the biggest thing that has I want to say made us stand out is of those particular objects, about 40 to 45% of those objects are highly complex. One particular set of reports, 10, 12 reports for this particular reporting purpose, it took a team about 6 months to develop. And that's not due to the product, it was simply due to the complexity. We've really tried to maintain a separation between business objects as an application and a reporting functionality and the data. So we do not allow anybody to write back to any data. We simply have read only, and we have no control over our data sources. And going through the Data Act a while back, the transparency of government spending, we basically had to take quite a few disparate systems and compare them against each other, validate the numbers, and do the reporting, which again really limits us as to what we are able to do because of that not the ability to write back to anything or modify anything to our needs.
Okay, and Chuck, what can you tell us about? So you just told us about your BobJ environment, and how do you guys use BobJ within GSA?
We will
Next
use
slide.
it for. Oh, I'm sorry. So as I said, we handle a lot of the financial reporting, record keeping for multiple agencies. There are external agencies that actually have GSA providing payroll services. We also do HR and payroll for internal. We do reporting for the Railroad Retirement Board, OPM, NCUA, and again, multiple GSA agencies themselves. So as we're doing these, everybody knows you go through a month-end closeout reporting, quarter-end, financial year-end. We also have to, like I said, do the Data Act reporting and the reporting to Treasury. And so all those records, not only do we have to report on those items, but we're also required to maintain those records 6 years, 9 months. So it's quite in depth.
And just for the audience, so for people that are not familiar with the Data Act, so all the federal agencies have to report, I believe, on a monthly basis around, I think, their spending to the Treasury and to OMB.
Yes, and that was another very large project, because the different areas that we were providing these services for, data can be in a different format, can be in a different place, can be in a different table. So trying to reconcile all of these different data sources and then actually do a final reconciliation on a lot of the financials was extremely difficult.
And and I'm assuming BobJ has been very helpful. Actually, there are a lot of federal agencies that are using BobJ actually to be sending these financial reporting to Treasury and OMB. Actually, I think there's a solution on the market called the CFO Control Tower that does that, and they leverage behind the scene BobJ. I've seen a project with DOJ on that lately. And then last point, Chuck, so tell us about, at high level, what do you guys do in terms of report centralization?
Where this comes into play a lot of times is because a lot of our, again, handling payroll and HR, if anybody who's ever had a problem with your paycheck and it's not correct, you need somebody to go in and find out what the problem is. And so they're going to need access to a lot of confidential and sensitive information. So we have BobJ set up with very high security in a separate system, where we allow our HR personnel the ability to go in and create ad hoc reports, so they can search a particular person's payroll information for a specific pay period, and then find out where the problems were, correct the problems, and then that gets sent on out to payroll, and the problems usually are resolved. Another thing that this really helps us with is, overall tracking of time and attendance and payroll and benefits.
Okay, so Chuck, I was able to take control of that slide, so that'll be easier. So in terms of challenges, so at GSA, when we prepared this this event, so you had mentioned there were 4 challenges that you'll cover today.
Yes, are you on the next slide? Because I didn't see
Yes,
them.
I am. So I think the 4 challenges were visibility and documentation, lineage and impact analysis, upgrades and migrations, and then regulatory requirements. So let's go to the first one. So what can you tell us about visibility and documentation, Chuck?
Yeah, anybody who's dealt with Bob J knows that Bob J, in regards to reporting against itself, is the black hole. It just does not give you any visibility to what's going on inside of Bob J. Going through multiple consolidations, we've actually inherited 1, 2, 3, 4 other systems, and either consolidated or actually had to rebuild a lot of their reporting capabilities. With that, we need to be able to look into what reports are actively being used, what is the frequency, what is the volume, and that's always been a challenge with Bob J. Then if dealing with these data sources, if they decided to change over a particular table structure, it was very difficult to identify every place where that particular object was being used within different universes, within reports, to find out exactly what type of an impact that was going to put on our developers to go in and change all this. Impact analysis was almost non-existent. Going through the upgrades and migrations, that is where it used to be once a year, once every 2 years, we would go through this. It almost seems like now this is about a quarterly activity. With the regulatory requirements and the security requirements that are literally coming in daily, a lot of times we really feel like that we can barely get finished with one upgrade before we're starting a second.
Yeah, and I hear you. That's something that we hear pretty much from everyone. And in terms of visibility and documentation, so you had mentioned you had like 2 stories where you've leveraged 360. So I think in the past, you had mentioned it was very difficult for you guys to be able to document all the universes. So
as far as anything that we've done, as far as documenting, well, specifically the universes, we actually had 2 to sometimes 3 people working, and I want to say part-time, working on documenting each one of the universes and each one of the tables, each one of the areas that the data came from, documenting all of this and storing it. By the time I was able to get 360 up and installed, they had been working for about 6 months, and they had about 40% of the universes mapped, but a lot of the data was incomplete and it was inconsistent. As soon as I got this up and running, that was one of my first test cases, if you will, and I ran a complete universe documentation, ran about 8 different sets, sent them out, and they were like very, very impressed. But we would really like to have, this data and this data, and we don't need that. And with my limited knowledge of the program, I was able to actually go in, modify the jobs that I needed to gather the information that they wanted, presented in the way that they wanted, and I was able to completely map every universe that we have and provided them twice the information that they were getting, and I had it completed in 3 days.
Okay, so whatever it took 6 months in the past for 2 persons, basically, and was not as complete, you're able to pull out in 3 days with 360. That's pretty cool. And And you want to share the story that was quite interesting, where in the past you had no visibility on the scheduling, and tell us about that story. That
Yeah,
was pretty weird. Actually, that I
yeah.
heard also about that story from the support. So
Well, that was actually one of my primary reasons for even requesting this specific tool, is because I kept noticing that my storage in my environment was growing inconsistent with the other environments that had replicated data. So it had to be user data, but trying to find that specific data was rather difficult. Anybody who's used Query Builder knows that, I mean, the relationships there are very difficult to follow and to go through. So in getting this particular product, I was able to go through, and I ran across my top 10 users, and and I had a particular user who had a report scheduled, and I want to say it was scheduled to run every hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and was not scheduled to end until 2033. And by the time I got a hold to him, he had thousands of instances. So I contacted the user and I said, "Excuse me," I said, you've got, thousands of these instances in there." I was like, I said, "It's impossible for a person to actually use that much data. So can you tell me what's going on?" And he was like, "Oh, I'm so glad you contacted me, because I need help trying to fix that. I was setting this up. I set it up incorrectly, but I don't know how to fix it." And so we actually were able to go in, eliminate a lot of that, fix his report, got the customer was happy, and a lot of my space challenges were reduced quite a good bit.
and in the past, like prior to 360, so you are using Query Builder?
Used Query Builder extensively. I actually find that especially like in 4.3, you do have the CMS driver for the reporting with your universe and everything, but the way that the structure is set up and the relationship between the layers was rather difficult to follow the lineage, the concept, the dependencies. And even when I was able to work through some of those within the drivers, a lot of the information within that I can get with Query Builder was not in the CMS driver, universes and reports. And so I find myself consistently going back to the Query Builder, and I've actually used that quite a good bit because I could get the data that I needed. But it was very difficult to get it in a relatively easy manner. Once you were able to retrieve the data, it was just as difficult to reorganize it and use it actually in a report.
So in terms
those
of,
were the.
yeah, good.
Go ahead.
So in terms of a lineage and impact analysis, so that was also, like what you were mentioning was like an important need in the past, and how were you doing before, and how are you doing things now on that, leveraging
Yeah,
the
and
tools?
when now that we've got 360, we're able to generate these reports. It's almost like a very nice blend between the ease and the GUI front end of the CMS driver with the granularity and detailed information that you would actually get out of Query Builder. To me, that's kind of what 360 has provided with me so far. And again, I'm still relatively new with the product, but one of the things that has been very, very helpful to us is that documentation, the impact analysis. Those have been invaluable just since I've installed it. Now, going a little bit further, as everybody knows, with all the security regulations that are coming out, everything that happens, they want to know who, why, when, where. And with Query Builder, a lot of times I could get them information about a point in time. But with 360, I'm not only able to give them, like say, what has happened right now, but what did it look like before, or give me a little bit more detailed information as far as the history of actions.
And how, how is the lineage and impact analysis helping you with users? So I'm assuming you've got some users doing a doc reporting within BobJ, is that correct? Or
yes, we actually have, in fact, all of our users have the ability to do ad hoc reporting. So what we'll do is we'll create, I want to say, more of a generic report that will pull in specific data, pull in specific fields, and then when we make that report available to our users, we allow them to copy the report down and then modify it by usually extracting data that they don't need. There have been times where they've needed to add data that we did not include in that particular report to make the customized report for their needs. The other thing that has been very helpful as far as the ad hoc reporting is the ability for them to go in and specifically create a report that serves their business need. And a lot of times the ad hoc reporting is not something that they're going to use over and over as much as it is they're going to use it for an end result. Such as the HR with the payroll problems, where they need to go in and they need to pull a history, they need to pull this information, this information, this information. Once they have that information, now they can actually act on it, perform a function, change this, make whatever it is that they need to fix. Once that's done, a lot of times they'll get rid of that one and move on to the next, but it's the ability to do that ad hoc reporting that a lot of my users use.
And in terms of time saving, you're mentioning something like 80%. Is that accurate?
You talking about for the ad hoc reporting?
For the lineage and impact analysis, the amount of time typically it helps you save. So.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. Because prior to a lot of the reports that we have run, in order to do any type of analysis, we did keep good records. But as you know, if you were to go and open up each individual universe document file, search for this specific object that was being changed, now you're going to have to go through every universe. You're going to have to look at every document. You can do your searches, but nonetheless, you're going to have to physically look through everything. Whereas now with the 360 and the ability to have all of this in one place, we're able to perform impact analysis, and 80% is generous. 80% savings is generous.
Okay, that's cool, and
it
I'm
could
assuming
even be more than that.
Okay, well that's good news, and I'm assuming before it was always you'd go and see all the developers, and then they would all assume, or that's what we hear from customers, they would be assuming, well, I know this object is coming from there, it's linked this way, and it was always based on internal knowledge, hoping that people wouldn't leave the organization, I'm assuming.
Yes, absolutely. That is absolutely critical in our environment. Like I said, 40 to 45% of our reporting capabilities, they're extremely complex. It is not an easy job. In fact, if I even hire a developer to begin working on a project, from my onboarding process through my learning curve to where they're actually functioning and productive is a absolute minimum of 90 days. Usually it is 6 months to 1 year before they're actually familiar enough with everything that we do and how we do it, and how it's all arranged before they really become productive. So legacy knowledge is absolutely critical to not only our organization, but to our specific department. And the ability to take that and go and get some of this information now with 360, yeah, it's because I mean, personnel will change eventually. That's a given. So yeah, having it documented is priceless.
And I'm assuming there in that case for the onboarding, since you're documenting everything and you've got now the lineage and impact analysis, it's not really a concern anymore because you've got like an accurate view of what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it will probably cut the learning curve in half.
Nice.
You know, again, you're still going to have a certain amount of familiarity that's going to have to come just simply by you know, understanding everything that we do, where it's at, stuff like that. But as far as the ability to have a view into where some of these things are located, how they're arranged, where you can get this information from 360 versus having to get it from another developer. Yeah, it's like I say, to me, priceless because I've lost legacy knowledge before and had to rebuild it by reverse engineering things.
And you've been in this position, you know, at GSA, I'm assuming for quite a few years.
Yes, I've been doing this one since 2008.
Okay, that's so that's actually
I've been working on Bob J before it was called Bob J.
So Bob, Chuck, so in terms of upgrades and migration, so I understand GSA now is in 4.3. Why have you
Yes.
moved to 4.3? And what have been the challenges there?
Honestly, the challenges moving from 4.2 to 4.3 were actually, but for that one, were actually minimal. 3.x to 4.0 was absolutely excruciating. 4.0 to 4.1 was, you know, triage. 4.1 to 4.2 was, you know, basically intensive care for us. Now, 4.2 to 4.3, we're actually starting to get better. Within that same respect, the Fiora Launchpad did cause us quite a good bit of headaches. We actually migrated to 4.3 for two primary reasons. One is the end of life for Windows 2008. So in order to move to Windows 2016 and Windows 2019, we had to upgrade our version. So if we upgrade our version, the first thing I'm going to look at is for the next most stable release. 4.3 was the most stable release that I found. Since then, the 4.1 and I'm sorry, the SP1 and then the patch 3, we were actually probably the cause for the first couple of patches because we did find loss of functionality and some things that were broken that they were able to get fixed. But security vulnerabilities that were found in previous versions and OS platform compatibility, those were the two primary reasons for our upgrade.
So that's quite interesting because a lot of people, each time there's a new version of Bob's, are saying, you know what, never update to the last, you know, or wait until you've got at least a version 4 or above. That's what we've heard over the years. And what you're saying is it was easy to upgrade to 4.3, and actually it's pretty good. That's what you're saying, 4.3 SP1?
4.3 SP1, it's been pretty good.
That's good news.
I would say, yeah.
Okay, well, that's good because you know it's always good to hear from customers, and I think 4.3 SP2 was out actually Friday last week, if I recall. Do you have any plans to go there?
Yes, we do. I do have plans on going there, but as soon as they hit 4.2, I am going to wait for a couple of service packs. I'm sorry, you know, a couple of patches to come out on that one, just to see, and the main reason is because I don't have an essential need to move right away, and I am evaluating that one. In fact, one of the developers that I'm working with right now actually is looking at the 4.2 and some of the enhancements that were made.
And in terms of going to 4.3, so at that time you didn't have 360, and you were talking about the preparation. So, how much time do you think you would have saved in the preparation for documenting what you had to move to 4.3?
Oh, we would have saved at least 40% of our time, if not 50.
Okay.
And the biggest reason for that too is that at the specific time that we were upgrading, I was actually halfway through an upgrade when the end of life for 2008 came about, and I actually had to back up and start over again. And before I got completely finished with that, we actually had to take on a completely different environment that was on a different version of Bob J, very similar but different, and consolidate all of their information into our information, where we both pull data and had reports that had overlapping data sources. So actually having to go through and evaluate each one of their reports, universes, objects, and reporting capabilities as far as, like, why are you pulling this report? Where is it going? What are you doing with it? And finding the overlap between our current environment. Yeah, we would have saved a great deal of time.
And I think you were mentioning it took like 11 months to do the upgrade. So it's a lot of work to do. So
yes, it was a lot of work, because again, everything that we did, pulling all the information from just simple users to security to, like, say, like for the impact analysis for objects and everything, it was all done manually. It was done through customer interviews. It was done through universe documentation, query builder, and yeah, I can see where, like I say, this product, 40 to 50% is, and I used the wrong term a minute ago when we were talking about 80% when I said generous. Maybe conservative is a better word, because at least 40 to 50% of a time savings, I can see that very, very easily.
For the upgrade and migration in terms of preparation, that's pretty cool.
Yes.
So Chuck, as well, like, we put together like a methodology around 10 steps on how to facilitate upgrades and migration. So it's something that I'm now showing on the screen. And I think Chuck is basically today using the 360i's component. And I'm sure you'll be using some other components in the future. And on the last point for today, in terms of regulation, so, GSA, as all the federal organization, is highly regulated. And so of course, you need to meet Data Act, FISMA, NIST 853, etc. So before, how are you doing the documentation, and how are you doing that today? Because that's a key point for regulation.
We were basically, all of our documentation was done manually, like I say, manually through previous documentation that was actually in discrete files or query builder, or the CMS driver going to the universe and trying to generate reports out of that, and then also trying to get reports from the audit database, which those are never fun. And now being able to utilize the 360, and where I'm really kind of excited about that is I go through an audit every 6 months. So
Mhm.
every 6 months I go through a FISMA audit, which is internal, and then annually I go through an actual FSA audit, and all of those results actually are presented to Congress. So yeah, it scares me. That's not a test you want to fail. And with this particular product now, I truly feel like that I have a very, very good good handle on the system, and will be able to provide any of the information that they are requesting. Um,
And I
the
understand in the
history,
past,
I think, is also important.
yeah, and yeah, definitely here with 360, you're actually able to get historical information, and you're able actually to compare, through snapshots, metadata. So for example, on the slide here, I'm now showing like security, where you're able to extract security and compare it over time. So any metadata within Bobj can be documented through the pre-canned Webby documents, and then can be compared through time. And Chuck, I think in the past you were relying a lot on scripts to do certain things.
Yes, that was one of the things we used to have a script that would always go out, and because again, it's a security requirement for any user that has not been active for 30 days, that account become disabled. I don't want to delete it. All I want to do is simply disable it so that it's not sitting out there, active. And I used to have a script that would go out every day and basically bounce against a timestamp. And if the timestamp exceeded 30 days, it just simply disabled the account. Very,
Mm.
very smooth, and very, it's non-invasive to the user. But when we did upgrade, now that particular script doesn't work anymore. So
And that's quite common since the architecture is different with 4.3. So we heard that type of story quite often. So anyway, I thank you very much, Chuck, for being with us today. I really appreciate your time, or for making time to share how you've been using 360 at GSA, and to talk about 4.3 and also about regulation. So thank you very much, Chuck.
well,
Um,
thank you. I'm thoroughly enjoying the product so far.
Thank you very much, Chuck. And the experience with support was good, by the way.
Oh, very good. Very good. I'm the majority of the time when I've dealt with pretty much any application is that once you get past your sales folks and you start making calls or emails, you don't get near as good a response. But I would have to say I was also very impressed that once I was able to get set up and I had a specific need, or I had just maybe a small glitch, that the support personnel were very responsive, knowledgeable, and very, very helpful.
That's good to hear, and I really appreciate it. I know we take good care, or we take great care of doing that. Thank you very much, Chuck. Patrick, are you still on?
Yes, I am, of course.
Patrick, do you want to take a couple Q&A? And Patrick, you were, and so Chuck is still on, and I was, perhaps we can chat around how, GSA could eventually use the API, referring to the scripts that Chuck had put together. And perhaps we've got some time to take a couple questions.
Absolutely, yes. If there are any questions, it's near the end of the webinar, so please go ahead and submit your questions. But Chuck, it was great to hear how you use the product. So thank you from my side as well for sharing your experience and taking the time to to share with the rest of the community. Bruno, to answer your specific questions, the script that Chuck was using to disable, not delete, but disable users who have been inactive for a period of time. So this is something that you can do out of the box with 360. So you can simply create an admin task, you say, I want to disable users who have not logged on for a number of days, and you can even be more granular than that if you would like. With the power of the API, what we have released earlier this year is that if customers have scenarios like this one that we have not implemented in the product as an admin task, well, you may not need to wait for us to implement it. Thanks to the API, you may be able to create a script, okay, but create a 360 script and not a BusinessObjects script. And that way, you're not bound to the BusinessObjects API, which often changes between service pack or for sure between releases like 4.2 to 4.3. So yes, implementing that API is a way to make our product even more powerful for customers like Chuck who have specific requirements, and they can do those even before we just add it in the product. I hope I have answered your question.
Chuck, do you have some questions for Patrick around leveraging the API?
I don't have any right now, just mainly because I haven't had a chance to get to that point, but I definitely would like to get more information on, how to implement that API. And again, I know it's probably in the documentation, but with this security vulnerability that come up lately, and also the NIST has come out with a new rev, and I believe I have about 75 new controls to document, which has kind of chewed up a lot of my time.
And I'm assuming you're referring to the NIST 853 revision 5, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Patrick, is there anything else you would like to cover today? I know, we've passed for sure the hour. Is there anything else, or?
I'm just looking if there's some questions. No questions, but somebody called Bob, who is thanking you, Chuck. He says it was very helpful. It was nice to see that I wasn't alone in my Bobjet experience. So there we go.
So that is cool. So, at the end of, this webinar, we would like to make sure that you take 10 seconds to fill up the exit survey to let us know how we did. Also, if you want to rate, the way Patrick was looking with his Christmas sweater, just, feel free to do it as well. That was actually quite funny, Patrick. I really enjoyed that.
For the spirit, I did my best to find the ugliest Christmas jumper I could find. So that was my mission.
Well, that's always the mission every year, and I know we all have a good time just looking for that type of sweater. So that's pretty cool. So folks, that's all. Thank you for joining. Hope you all had a good time. Be good, stay cool. Hope you're all good during the year so that you got lots of presents. Remember to visit wiiisdom.com, so Wiiisdom with 3 I's, and to discover about 360Suite for business objects, Wiiisdom Ops for Tableau, Wiiisdom Ops for Power BI. So that's the present from Patrick, who's managing the product for 2022 for Q1. So that's really awesome. And then if you want to request a demo, get trial keys, just let us know. Again, thank you very much, Patrick. Thank you, Tony. And then big special thanks to Chuck for joining today. Thank you very much, guys.